I'm going to talk about the fourth way a bodhisattva helps human beings, and that's in Japanese, it's called Doji, which means identification with others. And it means to not create a separation, to identify everyone as the Buddha and identify every place as Nirvana. And our practice is about studying the self. And as you know, Dogen said to study the self is to forget the self. And that's the same thing as saying there is no self. If there's no self, then how do we function? But because there is no self, there's tremendous freedom. Most people spend their lives trying to protect their image, or what they think the self is. And that's what most people's lives are about. But the Buddha realized there is no self. Because there is no self, it can be revealed according to the circumstances. Each moment, it can be revealed according to conditions. And because there is no self, there's no separation between the self and all others. That's how to identify with others. The word nirvana literally means to extinguish opposites. When you extinguish opposites, then you identify with others. And in any event, in any moment, in any place, none can be other than the marvelous revelation of its glorious light. That quote is from Torie Zenji, and I'll mention more about it later. There is a verse that expresses Doji, or identification with others. The sea accepts water without limit, thus creating the great oceans. The mountains accept earth without limit, thus forming great mountain ranges. All rivers flow to the sea. That is our practice, to be open to everybody and everything. And then Torie Zenji also wrote, if by any chance they should turn against us and become a sworn enemy and abuse and persecute us, we should sincerely bow down with humble language and reverent belief that they are the merciful avatars of Buddha who use devices to emancipate us. So each of these beneficial ways contain the others. As a reminder, the four ways that a bodhisattva helps human beings are giving, or generosity, loving words, beneficial actions, and identification with others. If you practice only one of these ways to benefit others, then you include the other three. A bodhisattva practices in order to liberate sentient beings from suffering. And the most important element is that we face everything with a free, boundless, flexible, and open mind. Now, I quoted a little bit from Torie Zenji, who was a successor of Hakuin. And he wrote a verse called the Bodhisattva Vow. And I think I'll read it because it will give us a few more perspectives on this Doji, or identification with others. And Torie Zenji wrote, when I, a student of the Dharma, look at the real form of the universe, all is a never-failing manifestation of the mysterious truth of Tathagata or Tathagata. You know, it's the Tathagata is another name for the Buddha. So all is the never-failing manifestation of the mysterious truth of Tathagata. In any event, in any moment, and in any place, none can be other than the marvelous revelation of its glorious light. This realization made our founding teachers and various Zen leaders extend tender care with a heart of worshiping to animals and birds, and indeed to all beings. This realization teaches us that our daily food, drink, clothes, and protections of life are the warm flesh and blood, the merciful incarnation of Buddha. Who can be ungrateful or not respectful to each and everything, as well as to human beings? Even though someone may be a fool, be warm and compassionate. If by any chance such a person should turn against us, become a sworn enemy, and abuse and persecute us, we should sincerely bow down with humble language, in reverent belief that he or she is a merciful avatar of Buddha, who uses devices to emancipate us from our twisted karma that has been produced and accumulated upon ourselves by our own egoistic delusion and attachment through countless cycles of kalpas. Then on each moment's flash of our thought there will grow a lotus flower. And on each lotus flower will be revealed a Buddha. And these Buddhas will glorify Sukhavati, the Pure Land, every moment and everywhere. May we extend this mind over all beings so that we and the world together may attain maturity in Buddha's wisdom. So maintaining this mind of reverence and appreciation of everything that is provided for our safety and comfort, we can't help but appreciate everybody and everything. I mean, there's so many things that we can be thankful for. You know, even during this time of the pandemic, you know, I read and I hear about how many people are so stressed out and on the verge of suicide and mental collapse because of the limitations in the activities that they can do. But somehow I think that those of us who've been meditating for years, we know how to be quiet and how to be isolated and how to appreciate, you know, what we have. We kind of made for it. A friend of mine just told me about a book written by a guy named Connor O'Brady, who walked solo across the Antarctic continent. And he said the only reason he could do it because he went to these 10-day Vipassana retreats where he learned how to be comfortable, being quiet, being isolated, and being still. Although trekking across the continent, he's not still, but nonetheless, he was still inside. He wasn't agitated. You know? And this was a friend I knew from college. And he says, have you ever heard of this Vipassana? What is their way of thinking? You know, their way is thinking is not thinking. Yeah. But when we meditate and we learn to connect with a still point, that still point, if we're able to connect to it, we can bring that forward, whatever goes on in our life and whoever we're connecting with. How do we identify with the pain of others? It's kind of hard right now with such a country with such great division between perspectives. You know, there was a big article in the, I think it was in the Washington Post this morning about these 4 siblings who can't communicate with their mother, who is reading about all these conspiracy theories and doesn't believe anything, and they can't even communicate. You know, and the siblings, the children, you know, are well educated. You know, like one of them is a doctor, and the mother just prefers to believe the things she reads on the internet from conspiracy websites and from her own children. They can't even communicate. So how do we identify with somebody like that? Obviously, the mother has tremendous amount of fear. You know? So how do we identify with somebody who's so afraid? Yeah. It's a challenge. But the first thing, you know, is we have to look at what's preventing us from being open. What is our own resistance? That's where it always has to start.